Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning back in. I gotta tell you, I woke up this morning and it was really cool. It's warmed up a little bit now, but I still think it's only like 65 degrees. It was 45 degrees last night, which if you're up here in the North Country, you know, we're into September now. We definitely are having cooler days. The water temperature is dropping, and that's getting a lot of fish to start moving around. And today, because of that, I want to talk about one of my favorite ways to really catch a pile of fish in the fall. If you're a river fisherman, you know, it actually applies somewhat to lakes too. But guys, what I want to talk about today are wing dams. Wing dams are one of those pieces of structure that can be pretty intimidating on the water because for the most part, there's a lot of them and you're talking about fishing main river, heavy current type areas. But there's a pretty easy way to break them down and to make them much more manageable for an angler who's out there on the water. And, you know, so specifically, what's a wing dam? Well, a wing dam are man-made rock structures that run into the river. They can run parallel, they can run perpendicular to the current flow. They're man-made structures to divert current. And they want them, usually they're put into the main channel to divert current to create a deeper channel for navigational purposes. Usually you only find them on rivers that do have navigational routes for barges or bigger ships. And it's because they need to make sure that that main channel is kept to a certain distance so that those bigger boats have enough water depth to get to where they're going. So, in a lot of places, the Army Corps of Engineers or whoever is in control of that body of water will put rock piles in which divert that current and keep the main channel or the main navigational area deeper. And what that does is create a great opportunity for fish to utilize those rock structures to feed, which therein creates a good opportunity for us as an angler to catch those fish that are feeding on the bait fish. So wing dams for a good portion of the year really are not a huge player. There's fish that always utilize wing dams, but they really, in my opinion, don't come into a primary place to fish until late summer into the fall months. And the reason for that is you've got a portion of the shad population that will utilize those wing dams more to get out of the current, because normally with a wing dam, what you have is you've got the front side, which is a little shallower. You've got then your high wing dam where the current comes up and over, and then you've got a deep hole behind it. And that deep hole presents a good place for shad to get out of the current. In winter, it provides a good place for fish to feed on those shad to get out of the current in winter. It really is just one of those areas that fish move to in the later part of the year because the bait fish move there. And, you know, the key to finding a good wing dam is finding one that has bait and that the fish are utilizing. In my opinion, a good percentage of the wing dams are not in the right place to be a high percentage area. You know, like I mentioned before, you'll always have a handful of fish that utilize pretty much every wing dam, but in some cases a wing dam may be 100 yards long and they become much bigger targets, which are harder for the angler to break down and to locate those one or two fish that are using that piece. But if you're in the right area, you can catch 100 fish off a single wing dam. So what are you looking for for a high percentage wing dam versus, you know, maybe one that's not a good wing dam? And in my opinion, the number one thing that you want to find is a wing dam that is either upstream or downstream of a backwater area. So if you've got chutes that lead to a backwater area, those are high percentage spots. If you have just a dead end backwater that has a wing dam at the top end or the bottom end, those are really high percentage spots because those are areas that those fish that the shad will be sitting in, getting ready to move back into some of those backwater areas to winter. And at the same time, those are areas where you have the bass and other game fish are pulling out of those areas And those are the first wing dams they're going to come to utilize, the bait fish to feed on. So those are kind of the wing dams that I always try to key on first. Other than that, a lot of times the ones you're looking for are ones that are more upstream, closer to dams and locks, because at that point you don't have as many backwaters and there isn't as much structure for the fish to get on, so they'll cling to those specific wing dams. The other ones that I like to look for are wing dams that are on like the fronts of a lot of islands. A lot of times those will become good spots because you've got feeding flats in front of the island where you have good current flow, and a lot of times they'll put wing dams out in front of the islands to break the current flow to protect that island. So you've already got a good feeding place. You put a wing dam, there, it just makes it a better high percentage spot. So those are the areas that I'm looking for. Generally, I'm not just going to pull up on a wing dam that's in a row of, say, 5 or 6 wing dams over a half-mile stretch of river, because that just spreads the fish out that much more. You want to try to find those high percentage spots. When I do pull up on a wing dam, I'll always start on one of two places. I'll start on the tip, or I'll start on the very inside portion where that wing dam hits the shore. Those are your two best places. If I do not get bit out on the end or all the way by shore, I will not fish any more of that wing dam. I'll pick up, go to the next one, and usually I'm trying to get bit really quickly. I'm not going to sit there and fish it for a long period of time. I'm going to make a handful of casts. If I get bit, then I'll work it more. If I don't, I pick up, go to the next wing dam. Because like I said, there's a lot of dead water when you're fishing wing dams. The other high percentage spot, if you're dealing with any sort of wing dam that's got a blowout hole in it, that is the same basically as fishing the tips, so that's something to look for. Some wing dams will also have isolated large rocks, or for whatever reason a little bit higher spot, and those can be good places as well. But again, I would start on the inside portion or the very tip of the wing dam. Those are the two things that I'm looking for. Once I've found a wing dam that I think could be good, I'll go with a handful of baits. Again, like I said, I'm trying to cover water quickly. So for me, a really good bait is always going to be a topwater bait. I like to throw a Chapo. This is a Berkeley Chapo. It's a great bait for covering water, works really well in current as well. You can throw really any sort of topwater that is a good moving bait. I don't like to work slow moving baits because you don't cover much of the wing dam, and with the current, it just takes your bait out of the strike zone a lot quicker than it would a bait that you can work back to the boat, because you can kind of cast at, say, a 45-degree angle and get that bait to work over a good portion of the wing dam, because your bites are going to be in two places: the front side or the very first portion of the back side. Those fish that are going to be feeding and active are in very high percentage spots. The next bait that I like to go for is a lipless, like this War Pig, one of my favorite lipless baits out there. Really, the nice thing with a lipless bait is they're pretty weedless when coming through rock areas, and at the same time, it's a really good reaction bait. And again, it works well in current. It's a straight retrieve back. You're not letting the current pull your bait or take any bow in your line, which loses feel of your bait, which you can do with other baits. But in this case, a lipless crankbait is a great choice for fishing wing dams. Next up, you got whatever shallow running crankbaits you like. This is a square bowl, one of, just a nice shallow running. This is a 5.5, so it runs roughly down to 5 feet. I don't like to go with deep diving crankbaits on wing dams just because you get snagged a lot more. And for the most part, the tops of the wing dams that you're looking for, and the more productive ones, are only going to be in a couple feet of water. So that strike zone is really going to be, I would say 5 feet of water or less. In the most case, you're talking about 3 feet. So a shallow running square bill type crankbait is a good choice to be using as well. And last but not least, I like to throw a Carolina rig. A Carolina rig is a great bait for letting the current present your bait naturally as it's being pulled down the current. I like to throw smaller creature style baits and smaller cross style baits because You know, even though the fish are there for the most part feeding on shad, a lot of them are pinned to the bottom. So if they get something like this Maxent creature hog that goes flowing by nice and steady with the current, they will eat that just as they will a shad presentation. But this is kind of the Carolina rig for me is usually what I go to after I've located a wing dam that's got a good population of fish on it, because I don't want to slow down until I find where the fish are at. So I hope this was helpful, guys. If you live in an area that's got wing dams, and there are wing dams pretty much throughout the country, you know, the TVA lakes have, you go far enough upriver, you can find wing dams. The Mississippi River's got wing dams. You know, all over the country, you can find wing dams on the riverways that create most of the flowages and reservoirs that we fish. And put this to use. This is the time to get out there and fish those wing dams. So thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the channel, hit the like button, share it on your social media pages, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, new tips and tricks come out every day. Thanks for watching.